All right, guys. So questions I've been asked about are about our warm-ups and as a trainer, what the best way to warm up is. Now, I'm going to be taking you through the full warm-up, foam rolling, mobility, dynamic warm-up, plyos, medicine balls, everything we do before our strength training. And what I typically like to start off with, like I said earlier, is the foam rolling. Now, when we do our foam rolling, what we really want to focus on is not necessarily trying to dig out knots. You'll hear that a lot from a lot of people is, I really want to dig out the knots. I just feel like there's so much pain or tension in an area. What we're really trying to do is relax the muscles around areas that maybe are causing us issues. And the best way we do that is foam rolling. So what I like to do is choose a foam roller for a client that is going to be something that gives them maybe a 6 out of 10 on the pain scale. So with this one, for example, the Roller roller, we have the densest of all the Roller rollers. This is going to be very hard, very compact. And then the least dense, the blue, is not going to cause as much pain. It's going to be a lot softer on the muscle tissue. And then you can also have your basic foam roller, which is just like your Perform Better foam roller, just straight, no little divots in it. But when I like to start out, I go first into rolling out the glutes. So when I'm here, what I want to do is sit back. Whatever side I'm on, that same arm is going to be back. So if I'm rolling out my right glute, my right arm is back and my right leg is up. The opposite arm is coming up onto the ankle to really open up that hip, rolling back and forth. And realistically, we want about 10 to 20 passes on each of our muscle groups that we're hitting. So each area that we're hitting, the reason we're hitting these is so that we are getting the tight areas that we typically tend to see in clients. And that happens through years of sitting at a desk, or maybe we are we have past injuries that we're trying to roll out. So what we'll tend to hear too as fitness professionals is that people will say that foam rolling isn't proven to be a scientific method of helping anything. And while that is somewhat true, my whole idea behind foam rolling is if it makes you feel better, why not do it? So when I'm training my clients, does it make you feel better? Good, do it. Does it make you feel looser? Awesome, do it. So anyway, that may be some of the things that you hear from the naysayers. But after we do the glutes, we move down to the hamstrings. What I'm trying to do here is not only am I going straight on with the hamstring, but I'm turning my foot in and out so that I'm hitting all different areas of the hamstring as I'm going. I'm rolling through, all the way up, all the way down, switch sides. After I'm done there, move straight down to the calves. And same thing, moving my foot in and out. Again, we should be aiming for about 10 to 20 passes as we're going through. An important thing to mention as well is that as I'm foam rolling, I do not at any point want to feel like I'm tensing up from all the pressure that I'm creating inside the body. I want to be able to relax the muscle as I'm foam rolling. So if you're here and you're like, ooh, that really hurts, that must be a good thing. No, it's not, because you're not relaxing the muscles and you're not able to foam roll completely. So after I do the backside of the body, the glutes, the hamstrings, the calves, I'm flipping over and now I'm doing the quads, the IT band, and the back. So I always finish off with the back. It's the best feeling one. But when I start out, what I'm doing here is I'm going on one side. So I want to place this foam roller right in the middle of the quad as I'm going, and then the opposite leg is going to be up. So this gives me a little bit more balance. I can be on my hands to make it a little bit easier. If I want to get in a little deeper, go on to the elbows, and I'm just rolling back and forth all the way from the knee to the hip. Now remember, we have a few biarticulate muscles in the lower body, so that's going to be the hamstrings. And biarticulate means that it's a muscle that crosses two joints, not just one. And a lot of the tension that we feel comes from these biarticulate muscles as we're going through. And the reason we're feeling this tension in those specific areas, since we're crossing two different joints, we have higher risk of tension being built up. So if our hip is affected, right? So the quad is attaching up here. If our hip is affected, that's going to affect our knee as well. Because if our hip is tight, knee is going to be affected. It's all connected. So rolling out, again, always breathing in through the nose, big breaths in through the nose, and then exhale through the mouth. Next, I'm going into the IT band. That's just the side of the leg. Now this is definitely the most painful one for people, including myself. So to make this easier, instead of having your feet stacked up, if you want to get real crazy with it, you guys can go feet stacked together, or you can bring this top leg over, plant it down, and we're just rolling back and forth. You're almost in like a side plank position. And what this is allowing you to do is relieve some pressure. You can kind of control how much your hip is dropping into this position as you're going back and forth. And again, you want to roll from the hip down to right above the knee. Back and forth, get both sides there. And next we have our adductors. This is something that's often overlooked, but this is a very tight portion of the body, so the inside of the thigh. So what I'm doing here now, instead of having this facing horizontally, I'm actually getting this vertically in line with the body. I'm bringing my knee up high, and I'm rolling out the inner thigh. Back and forth again from the knee to the hip. And just to remind everybody that's watching, the reason we're doing all of these different areas, these are oftentimes the most tight areas in our body that cause issues down the line. So after I do one side, of course, go to the other side. I want to be loose on both sides, back and forth here. And then the very last thing I'm doing generally is rolling out the back. So when I'm rolling out the back, I start off the foam roller in the middle of the back, and I'm squeezing my elbows together, whether that's squeezing here, hands behind the head, or bear hugging myself and wrapping my arms around. This one's really fun. You feel a lot of good deep pops as you're going. You don't really want to go down to the lower back too much, but rolling from the middle to the upper part of the back, here. If you want to add a little extra, sometimes I'll add in lats. So if the clients are feeling really tight from a workout and a lats or sore, it's good to just hang out here. This one generally will be fairly painful as well. Another thing to mention, if you find an area that's really tense compared to another area, you don't have to continue rolling it out either. You could just sit there, find a really tender spot, hang out. Again, we don't want to be tensing up. So if I find a tense area and I continue to roll and I'm, right? All that's not giving me any relief. After the foam rolling, we go into our stretches and more of the mobility phase. Again, we're trying to get the body moving well before we start any actual lifting. So when I start out going to my 90-90s, it's pretty self-explanatory. 90-90s. Front leg is at 90 degrees roughly. Back leg is roughly at 90 degrees. Knee is in line with the hip. Knee is in line with the ankle. Same thing on the back side. When I get set up here, I'm leaning forward. I should feel like I'm having a rope pulling my chest forward. Hand is on the ankle, and we're stretching out those hip rotators in the back. Okay, so we're here. Again, deep breaths in through the nose, and then exhale through the mouth. And every time I exhale, what I'm really trying to focus on is slightly dropping forward more and more. So as I'm going, if you see from the side, I'm here, tall chest the entire time, and I'm moving and not allowing my back to round. If I round here, and yeah, that's cool, you can get all the way down to the ground, you're actually not getting as deep of a stretch as you could if you keep that back straight and push forward. I'm digging both knees into the ground. After that, after I get both sides, you're in here, flip over, go into my Spider-Man stretch. So this stretch, push-up position, leg is coming on the outside of the hand, and this hand is grabbing onto the ankle. We're stretching here. Again, deep breaths in through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Back to the other side, and we continue on. So after I do my Spider-Man stretch, what I'm doing now is going into my adductor rocks. So feet are going to be together in the back. Knees are going to be wide, and I'm bringing my foot off to the side. The foot is planted completely, and all I'm doing here is moving my hips back to that back heel. So I'm going back and forth. Generally 5 to 8 rocks are good. And if you tend to have really tight adductors, what you could do is simply bring this heel up, and that's going to loosen it a little bit. You're still getting that stretch, but not as deep. And as you start gaining more mobility, we can bring that foot down, plant it down completely. After 5, go 5 on the other side. And the very last thing we do after we do our adductors, we stand up and we go into our T-spine rotations. So next thing we're going into is our T-spine rotations. So when I'm getting set up for this mobility exercise, I'm just going really wide with my feet, and I'm going to be coming down to the ground with my hands. So I'm down here, and every time I come up, what I'm focusing on is moving through the middle part of the back. So I don't want to be moving through the low part of the back, the lumbar spine. This is called T-spine for thoracic spine rotations. So I come down, all I'm doing here is reaching up, exhale on the way up, and I come back down, touch the hand down, and I switch sides. Exhale every time I come up. So every time I'm coming up, what I'm trying to focus on is getting slightly further with each pass, each exhale, so that I'm increasing that mobility through the middle part of the back. So after I'm done with the foam rolling and the stretching, what I tend to do at this point is go into that dynamic warm-up. And we'll start off nice and simple. Start off with knee hugs. So I'm wrapping the hands right in front of the knee, maintaining that tall chest. And as I'm going, I'm stepping forward. So I'm constantly moving as I'm going into these and pulling that knee up to the chest. Next, I'm going into my leg cradles. Again, we're opening up these hip rotators. Come up, grab underneath the knee, over the ankle, tall chest, stand up tall, bring that knee to the chest. Again, walking forward as I go through here. After I get those done, I'm going into my quad stretch, standing up, grabbing onto that ankle, keeping the knee tight to the other leg, and then I'm slightly leaning forward. Again, as I'm walking, take a few steps, switch, go to the other leg, slightly lean forward, stretching out the front of the quad. And the last thing I'm doing before I start increasing the tempo and getting the heart rate going is our single leg deadlift. So I'm here, bringing one leg up, reaching back here, and I would be walking backwards just so I stay in frame. I'm switching as I walk back. So I'm walking back here, reach back every time, keeping that back flat. Do not round through the back. From there, guys, the options are limitless really with what you can do with the dynamic warm-up. As we start to increase tempo, we can do simple things like high knees, and then we go high knee butt kicks. So instead of just coming here with our high knees, we're getting our knees up high and also bringing our heel to the glute as we're going. But we only really need about 10 to 15 yards as we're doing these movements. One thing I do want to mention, though, it's very important to add skips. So if you're working with athletes, or if your kids are athletes, and you're trying to get them into the dynamic warm-ups, you can have them do their A skips. So as I'm going, I'm driving through, skipping through. And if you saw that from the side, you can see this here. So we're skipping forward. And as an adult, you don't necessarily need the A skip, but we do need to incorporate skips as adults. The reason is, this is helping with our balance and coordination as we skip. This is something that we tend to lose over time as we age, and you'd be surprised to see how many people actually forget how to skip. So start incorporating these into your warm-ups just to start helping you as you age get that balance and coordination. Another thing to mention, we should not only be moving linearly back and forth in a straight line, we should be moving laterally. So if you can do some sort of shuffle, athletic stance, we're staying low, going back and forth, karaoke, bringing one leg over, one leg under, going side to side. And we can also do those lateral skips as well. So if you have the athlete doing the A skip, you can go into a lateral A skip, back and forth, going both directions. You can do that as an adult as well. So after the foam rolling, the stretching, and the dynamic warm-up, after that, I like to go into the plyometrics and the medicine ball work. Now, it's very important that we incorporate this type of movement before our lifting. Number one reason, it works on power. Now, for athletes, of course, we want power. It helps us in every aspect of being an athlete, developing power. But also as an adult, the first thing we tend to lose as we age is power. And the reason we need things like that, just like I mentioned earlier with like the skips, it helps with our balance and coordination. And also balance and coordination help us not fall, right? Just like power, if we start falling, we need to be able to stop ourselves, right? So there's a bunch of different ways that you guys can do this. For the athletes, what I'll tend to do is have a bunch of different plyo workouts with hurdles, and then I will move on to medicine ball work. So some examples of what we might do with our athletes is going through some hurdle variations. So a lot of times we'll start off with 2 legs just to see how they're moving, how they land. So when they come up, they're coming up, sticking that landing, making sure that when they stick, knees are staying in line over the ankles. And if you want to make it a little more advanced from there, we go into our single leg exercises. We come up, hop over, again, stick that landing, drive through. And there's a bunch of different variations that you guys can do on the hurdles. Look them up, have fun with it. Now, I'd say the hurdles are generally more for like the younger athletes. Now, if you're someone that's like if you're an adult that still needs to work on that power, good thing that you can be doing is lateral bounce, hopping side to side. Again, we're still working on that landing. We're still getting that power. And it doesn't need to be something crazy. Do what you can do. Do what you're capable of. If it's a little hop, it's a little hop. If it's a big hop, it's a big hop. Whatever you can do, go ahead and do that. So the last thing I'm going into, guys, is some form of medicine ball work, whether that's slams, that's rotational power. So if I'm going rotational power, I'm here standing sideways to the wall. I'm tucking in the ball to this back hip. And then from there, I'm using those hips to explode through. So when I go through, I exhale, explode, drive through there. So I want about 5 on each side, 3 times through, whether that's slams. Drive up, slam the ball down, up, and down here. You can even go into your wall throw, stepping back, just throwing straight at the wall in a straight line. So again, there's a bunch of different variations that you guys can do with the medicine balls, the hurdles, any variation of plyometrics before you start your lift. Just go about 3 rounds through, 5 of each exercise, 3 rounds through, go on to your lifting. Have a great day.